Mr. Che, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state calls Officer Jason Cota of the Flagstaff Police Department.
What's your set?
You solemnly swear or affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God, or do you so affirm? Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Che.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Could you state your name, please?
Jason Cota.
And can you spell it for the record?
Jason Common Cota, C-O-T-A.
Okay. And where are you employed, sir?
Can you repeat that question?
Where are you employed?
I'm currently employed for the Flagstaff Police Department.
Okay. How long have you been so employed?
On or about 2 years now.
In what capacity?
As a police officer.
In October of 2015, were you still in training?
I was.
Can you describe that for the jury?
Yes. Do I go back?
Well, why don't I, yeah, I'll ask you for a brief description of your training and experience.
Okay. I attended Northern Arizona University and graduated December 2014. By January 2015, I was hired for the city of Flagstaff with the Flagstaff Police Department. Upon hiring, I was sent to Prescott Valley for the Northern Arizona Regional Training Academy. There I spent on about 4.5 months in training, focused on Title 28, which is traffic, Title 13, which is criminal, among others, on the Arizona revised statute. Upon completing the academy, I came back to Flagstaff, where I was sent to senior officers in training, hands-on on the field. And upon completing that training, you are, for lack of better words, graduating to a solo officer. So pretty much in training, you are with a senior officer who is teaching you how to work on hands-on on the streets, on the road, for lack of better words.
Okay. I wonder if maybe you can just move that microphone just a little bit to your right and a little bit closer to you, because you're turning your face towards the jury, but it's difficult to hear you. All right, so in other words, you trained with other officers essentially as a rookie, right, before you became a full-fledged solo police officer?
Yes.
And is that like, that's a graduated phases of essentially field training?
Yes.
So it's 2 or 3 different officers you trained with over what period of time?
It varies on the officer.
Okay. And so did you train with 2 other officers or 3?
I had, I believe it was 4 other officers before I was with Officer Herrera on that day and time.
Okay. All right. So now we're talking about October of 2015.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
You were still in field training?
Yes.
And your field training officer was whom?
Officer Gilbert Herrera.
Directing your attention now, Officer Cota, to the very early morning hours of October 9th, 2015. Do you remember that night?
I do.
Were you working?
I was working.
And were you with Officer Herrera?
I was.
Did you have a body camera on you at that time?
I did not. I was not issued one yet.
Did Officer Herrera have a body camera?
He did.
And he was a more senior officer?
Yes.
At approximately 1:20 a.m., did you receive a dispatch?
Yes.
And as a result of that dispatch, were you guys in the same cruiser or a separate cruiser?
Same vehicle.
Okay. So as a result of that dispatch, what did you do?
When we received the call, we were at what is commonly known as the Grove, an apartment complex. That's when we received the call. So we hop over the street in downtown Mountain View.
Okay. All right. So you made reference to an apartment complex called the Grove.
Yes.
And that's actually really close to the Flagstaff Police Department, isn't that correct?
Across the street, yes.
And it's, if you were in the Grove and you wanted to head towards NAU's campus, you would use Franklin Street or Franklin Road, is that correct?
Correct.
All right. Is that how you guys responded to the call?
Yes.
Where did you go to?
From the Grove, Franklin, down to Mountain View Hall.
Okay. And you knew you were going into a scene where there was a reported shooting, is that correct?
Not a shooting, a fight involving a firearm.
A fight involving a firearm?
Yes.
That's what you knew?
Yes.
All right. Did you receive any other information before you arrived at that area, Mountain View Hall?
No.
Okay. So you didn't know who, how many, or even what? Is
Correct.
that fair?
Yes.
So you and Officer Herrera approached the scene in your cruiser?
Yes.
And then did you exit your cruiser at some point?
Did I exit it?
Yes.
Yes.
And where was that?
The north side of Franklin.
In immediate proximity to Mountain View Hall or the driveway there?
Right across.
Okay. What did you do when you arrived at the scene?
So I exited my cruiser. The only knowledge I had was fight involving a firearm. Since I was down the street, it took me seconds to get to the scene, so they didn't know what to expect. So I drew my firearm and started walking toward the parking lot of Mountain View Hall.
Okay. Holding your firearm in what fashion?
What is called a low ready.
All right. Can you demonstrate for the jury what low ready means? Can you stand up and show the jury, don't draw your gun, of course, but...
Okay, that was a question. Okay.
But just demonstrate for the jury with your hands. Okay. Down like that, pointed at the ground?
Yes.
All right. And so, was Officer Herrera also walking like that?
I don't know how Officer Herrera was walking.
Was he behind you?
Yes, he was behind me.
And you entered the scene?
I did.
What did you see when you first arrived at the scene?
At first I saw a group of males on the ground, on the floor. One of them was yelling, "I'm shot." So I directed my attention to that male.
All right. Can you tell us approximately where that person was lying on the ground?
So the Mountain View Hall has two entrances, a west and an east entrance. So this male was in the east entrance by the what is called the Gamify door of the Mountain View Hall.
Okay. Near Franklin Road then?
Yes.
And there's a parking lot in that area as well, right?
Yes, there is.
All right. So, all right, so you heard somebody saying, "I was shot," and you attended to that person?
Yes, I attempted to attend to that person.
Please describe to the jury what about that person you observed, what they said.
That person was yelling that he was shot. I asked him, "Where are you shot?" And he kept yelling, "I'm shot." So as I was trying to kneel down to aid this person, I heard some other noise on the background, people yelling that the firearm was on the other side of the parking lot. So that's when I stopped helping them, directing my attention to the other side of the parking lot.
And as a first responding police officer to a scene, now you know somebody's been shot. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
What's your first priority?
Secure firearm.
Okay. And so you left that person who was on the ground and you went in the direction that somebody said the firearm was?
Correct.
All right. What was the next thing that you observed?
There was another group of people on the southeast corner of the parking lot. There, I observed several people on the ground. As officers were indicating them to get on the ground. Since we arrived, we had no idea what we were encountering. There on the ground, I observed a male who was shot. That male was conscious. He was somewhat calm. There was a female aiding this male. And then I saw another male who was in a landscaping area, rock area. He was just laying, not moving. That person had been shot as well.
All right. And you said other officers were giving commands in that area?
Correct.
How many, so You and Officer Herrera arrived at the scene. Other officers were coming from other directions, is that fair to say?
Yes.
What about the gun?
As I was moving, directing my attention from the entrance towards the back, I was still trying to figure out where the gun was. So I heard that the gun was in the southeast corner of the parking lot, so I directed my attention and drew my firearm a second time. As I got there, I noticed that there were other officers there, and one of them said that the firearm had been secured.
Okay, so there was, do you remember who those officers were?
Not all of them, but some.
Okay, who were those officers?
Officer Gilbert from the Flagstaff Police Department, Officer Hinty from the Northern Arizona University Police Department, and I believe that's all I can remember.
All right, and did you actually observe the, in that moment, somebody said that the gun was secure. Did you see the gun, and did you confirm in your own mind that it was secure?
Quickly, yes. Officer Gilbert was standing right next to it.
What did you do next, Officer Cota?
I was still processing what was happening, and Officer Herrera indicated me to aid the male that was not responding, so I did. I holstered my weapon and went down and aid the male that was not responding.
Okay. In what way? CPR?
I did not do CPR. I cut his shirt open to see where he was wounded. Then I noticed that he had a gunshot wound on his upper right side of his chest. Then another officer was there with me, and we switched at that moment, and he began performing CPR.
Who was that officer?
Officer Shavosky.
Did you see that person respond or show any signs of life?
When I initially got there, I was right next to this male. He did something to the effect of gasping for air. I told another officer that he's still breathing. That's where I got down, cut his shirt, and I tried to provide first aid. As I was cutting his shirt open, that happened again.
The gasp for air? Correct.
And that was the last movement I saw from that person.
What did you do? Did you stand guard or stand in that location, or what happened next?
So I located one gunshot wound in that person. I switched with Officer Shavosky. He performed CPR, and I just stand by controlling radio traffic. I aired over the radio that we were doing CPR, and I did not call, but other officer called to medics to respond on scene, and priority this person.
Okay, so ultimately medics did arrive?
They did.
Did they attempt to aid that person that was unconscious on the ground?
Yes, they took over CPR, and the fire department continued CPR on this person.
Okay, for how long?
I have no idea.
Okay. Did they stop at one point?
They did.
Why was that?
I believe it was paramedic from the fire department. He told me that the person had deceased.
And then, fair to say, an NAU police officer placed a blanket over his body?
Yes, I got the time when the fire department called that this person had been deceased. I transmitted over the radio, and then I can't recollect which agency was it, but yeah, they placed a blanket over the body.
Did you then go to look at the gun?
Yes, I stood next to the gun, and I pretty much took custody of the gun as it was on the ground.
Okay. So, all right. And so you kept it secure for a period of time?
I did.
Fair to say it had a flashlight on it?
Yes.
Okay. Was it physically attached to the gun?
Yes.
And what, did you identify what kind of gun it was?
Yes.
None. Was the flashlight on when you saw the gun?
It was off.
And specifically, where was it that you found the gun?
It was on the southeast corner of the parking lot. Not parking lot, the parking lot had ended. It was a sidewalk south of the parking lot.
So you stood guard over the gun. What was happening around you, if you recall?
As I was standing with the gun, people were being transported to the police department for interview. People were being escorted out of the scene. People were being transported to the hospital for care.
Fair to say that when you guys all first arrived and when you were standing or giving aid to the young person on the ground, other officers were putting people in handcuffs?
Yes.
Would you be able to estimate roughly how many people were in that area of the parking lot during that period of time?
I cannot.
Less than 10?
Honestly cannot.
Okay. But in any event, people were either injured or placed in handcuffs. Is that fair?
Correct, yes.
At some point in time, another officer came towards and actually handled the firearm. Is that correct?
Correct.
And who was that?
Officer Beckwith.
Okay. And what did he do?
He removed the magazine from the firearm and removed the bullet from the chamber.
Okay. So there was a bullet in the chamber?
Yes, there was.
And that's a process referred to as clearing the gun or making the gun safe?
Correct.
He actually provided you with those items, isn't that correct?
Correct.
So he provided you what and in what way?
A magazine for the firearm and a single bullet, which was on the chamber.
Okay. Did you place that in a bag, or what did you do with that?
Yeah, it was placed in a plastic bag, and I kept it onto, I transferred custody of it to NAU Police Department.
Okay, to process as evidence?
Correct.
Did you also notice how many rounds remained in the magazine at that time, or prior to transferring it to NAUPD?
Approximately 5 rounds in the magazine and a single one.
And that was the one that was ejected from the chamber?
Correct.
After after Officer Beckwith cleared the weapon, what did he do with it?
He placed it on the ground as he found it.
You didn't remove the rounds from the magazine, though, is that correct?
Correct, I did not.
Fair to say you stood in that location until the scene was clear of victims?
Correct.
And you learned the identity of the deceased young man at that time, is that correct?
Correct.
And what was his identity?
Colin Brew.
And how was it that you learned his identity?
Colorado ID, I believe.
Officer Herrera, did he locate an ID?
Yes, there was a wallet on the victim's left front pocket.
And in that was a Colorado ID?
Correct.
Okay. And you also, did you handle that ID or provide that to NAUPD?
Yeah, the idea as well with the wallet.
What was the remainder of your activity at that scene that night?
I was relieved from the area where the pistol was located. Then I headed back to the entrance, to the east entrance of the Mount View Hall parking lot, and then I began a crime scene log.
What's a crime scene log?
Pretty much writing down the names of the persons who go in and who out and go out of the crime scene.
The scene was secured by police tape in that time frame?
Yes, there was.
Have you reviewed Officer Herrera's body cam footage before today?
I have.
And does it accurately observe what you saw there at the scene?
Correct.
Your Honor, the state would offer exhibit number 353, a redacted version of that video.
No objection.
353 is admitted.
May I publish, Your Honor?
Yes.
Check that window right there. Can you get better pressure? Got gloves? White shirt right there, white shirt. Check that kid right there. This guy looks like he's shot pretty good in the chest. Probably didn't get medicine in first. Yeah, probably. Hey, don't go in there, man. You stay right there. What I need the street shut down at San Francisco Franklin. I don't know. I think so. You and just holding the gun. I think they come right to the entrance of the hall. Yeah, when we're doing compressions on it, at that point. Is he hit? Hey, we need to start separating these people. Start separating them, dude. Separating everybody that's not injured.
All right, officer, you saw that video, right?
I did.
And so I didn't ask you, I suppose I could have stopped the video, asked you to count the people that were there. You didn't happen to count them when we were watching it, just a minute ago, did you? All right, maybe we'll try to cue that up. Now that's you standing there, is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. And that's how many people were there when you arrived, is that correct?
Correct.
Are you able to count how many people? Not including the police officers.
7, I believe.
I'm sorry?
7, I believe.
Okay. And there's more than one individual with a white shirt on there, isn't that right?
Correct.
And also, would you agree that there was sufficient lighting, even without the flashlights, there was sufficient lighting to be able to see what was going on?
Correct.
If I may have a moment, Your Honor.
All right.
Nothing further, Your Honor. Thank you.
Mr. Davidson. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
I'm sorry. Good morning.
Yeah.
I have just a few questions for you. You were at the Grove when the call came over the radio?
I was.
Okay. If hypothetically a person were at the Grove and their vehicle was parked, the Mountain View parking lot, referred to as parking lot 7A, and they were to walk from the Grove to the parking lot, the most typical path they would take would be down Franklin Street West, would it not?
Correct.
Are you familiar with an apartment complex that's sometimes referred to as the courtyard?
Is that the one across Mountain View Hall?
I believe the address may be 261 or 262 Franklin Street, across the street from Mountain View Dorm.
Yeah, I know the area. I don't know the apartments, like how they're structured inside.
Okay, but as you walk west down Franklin Street, there's some apartments
Yes.
on the right to the north, correct?
Correct.
Notwithstanding that your response time was relatively short, you were not the first officer on the scene, were you?
I was not. NAU was first.
Do you have a recollection, sir, of how many other officers were present by the time you arrived?
I do not. I know for sure NAU was there first, so 2 officers for sure.
Do you know how long at least those other 2 officers had already been on scene as of the time of your arrival?
Can you repeat that question?
Certainly. Do you know how long those other 2 officers had been there as of the moment you arrived?
Oh, I do not know.
When you began to cut to remove the shirt off Mr. Brew, you noticed that it was a white shirt, was it not?
Correct. Yes.
And he was not wearing anything over the white shirt, was he?
Not that I can recollect, no.
And we know that was Mr. Brew because the identification recovered from his pocket indicated that was his identity.
Correct.
Could you clarify for us, sir, to the best of your recollection, where it was that you first observed the location of the gun?
Where was the gun located?
Right. When you first saw it on the ground.
Where it was?
Yep.
Or it was in the southeast corner of the parking lot. He was not in the parking lot, but adjacent to a parking lot, there's a sidewalk. He was on the sidewalk.
Was there a tree also nearby to where the gun was located?
Yes. I believe if you keep going south, there's a tree, like landscaping area, and there's a tree right there.
And as you sit here today, we have no concerns that Officer Beckwith, if I'm saying his name correctly, after the gun was made safe, was placed back where it was originally recovered.
Correct.
You are familiar with the operation of a Glock handgun?
I am.
It's a semi-automatic pistol.
It is.
If a round or multiple rounds were fired and there were unfired rounds left in the magazine, an additional round would automatically go into battery and be placed in the chamber, correct?
Correct.
In other words, if you fired a round, it wouldn't take any additional operation or movement of the gun for another round to come up through the magazine and go into the chamber.
Correct.
and there were 6 rounds total in the firearm, correct?
Correct.
Finally, sir, you talked about the low ready position, and Mr. Shea had you demonstrate that for us. May I correctly assume that you've received instruction on various firearm technique and firearm handling?
Correct.
And we can agree that the low ready position is what we saw from Officer Herrera's body cam as you were standing over by the southeast corner of the parking lot?
Correct.
And give or take the degrees, you're approximately holding it at a 45-degree angle towards the ground.
On and about.
Okay. I'm not going to hold you to the 45 degrees, but at an angle, slope down in front of you, correct?
Yes.
Okay. We can agree that's a threat assessment position for a handgun, correct?
Correct.
I know no officer, I know every officer hopes they never have to discharge their gun in the line of duty, but if, God forbid, that situation were to present itself and you had made the decision that you had to discharge your firearm, you would not be holding it to low ready position at that moment, would you?
No.
You would lift it up and then fire, correct?
Correct.
A brief moment, Your Honor. No further questions, thank you, sir.
Redirect.
Yes, Judge, briefly, thank you. Officer Cota, in order to get a bullet into the chamber, what do you have to do?
Initially,
Yes.
you have to rack back the slide of the pistol.
Okay. So you have to pull back on the slide, and that releases a bullet from the magazine into the chamber?
Correct.
And that makes the gun ready to fire. Is that correct?
Correct.
When you're holding your weapon at low ready, you would have a round in the chamber. Is that correct?
Correct.
And the ready part of low ready is you're ready to shoot if you need to, right?
Correct.
Moving to the exhibit number 316 again, Your Honor, if I may. Officer Cota, you see what's up there on the screen?
I do.
Do you recognize that area?
I do.
Is that the area that we've been discussing since you took the stand?
Correct.
And there might be a laser pointer on the desk up there in front of you. Using that laser pointer, can you indicate where the gun was located? Okay, so there's actually a black item on the ground there that you can see in this view. Is that correct?
Correct.
And you've indicated to that item, which is it fair to describe that as adjacent to the striped parking area of the parking lot?
Correct.
On the other side of a curb?
Correct.
And there's like a little like cement or walk area there?
Yes.
And is that consistent with your memory of where the firearm was when you found it and when you left it?
Yes.
No further questions, Judge. Thank you.
All right, I'll turn to members of our jury and see if you have any questions for Officer Cota. Does not appear that we do. Can this officer be excused?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you.
Officer Cota, thank you for your testimony. Can I see counsel up here, please?